The Manitowish Waters Historical Society is pleased to present Mary Perkins and Deb Skrobot, representing the Manitowish Waters Sno-Skeeters. Their presentation on the history of snowmobiling in Manitowish Waters was recorded in the fall of 2023. Frank DiLenardi narrated this interview as president of the Manitowish Waters Historical Society. The beginning of the Sno-Skeeters and the formal organization of snowmobiling within Manitowish Waters, Wisconsin, was rooted in family gatherings and a grassroots group of snowmobile enthusiasts rose up and created an amazing organization that will help define our community. Take a moment and look at this image of families gathering with sleds, toboggans, next to Fox Island, probably protecting themselves from a stiff north wind and celebrating on the snow and ice of Rest Lake. Early on, the Sno-Skeeters began their development of trails. This 1973 map shows that in addition to the main trail that connected Manitowish Waters to other communities, they created 3 other loops and maintained them with grooming techniques that would include bed springs and cement blocks. Over time, the development of snow trails, as evidenced here in a 1990 map, really became more formal and organized. The networks between communities, destinations, and snowmobile clubs throughout the region really brought snowmobiling to the forefront of the Manitowish Waters identity and economy. As we look to 2013 ads and 2018 ads, we can see the trails still continue to evolve with great images of winter rendezvous, grooming equipment, and the ever-developing network of trails that so many residents and visitors prize. We hope you enjoy this interview and thanks the Sno-Skeeters for all their support.
Good morning. We're joined today by a couple of our strong members from our snowmobile club, Debbie Skrobot and Mary Perkins. Very happy to have you ladies with us today. Maybe we could just begin with a brief introduction of yourself.
I'm Deb Skrobot, and I've been with the Snowmobile Club since it started, which was in 1968.
Okay. Mary?
And I'm Mary Perkins. I don't know when I actually became a member, but I've been secretary of the club for almost 20 years.
Great. Well, thank you for joining us today. So it started in 1968. So can you think back to that period of time and tell us who was involved, how did it get started, how did it get rolling?
Well, Ralph Hansen was a big part of starting the club. And then we had Ken Lyons, who was very mechanical. And when we first started doing the grooming, we groomed with 2 Polaris snowmobiles and a bed spring. 2 bed springs. And we would just follow each other. My past husband and I would go out and groom the trails. Kenny Lyons then built a drag, and he pulled it with a Caterpillar through the trails.
Interesting, fun. Can you talk a little bit about the initial vision for the club? What was the club trying to accomplish when it first got started?
My thought on the reason they probably started it was to boost the economy of Manitowish Waters, because it was tough winters back then. If you didn't make your money and save it for the winter, you starved. So by starting a snowmobile club and getting snowmobiles rolling, it would bring economy in to the area in the winter.
You know how many people were involved at those very first clubs, and who were some of the first officers?
Well, let's see.
Ralph Keble,
Yeah.
Ralph Hansen,
Ralph Hansen.
Skip
Skrobot.
Skrobot. I mean, the club has grown by leaps and bounds all the way through. When I first started as secretary, I think we only had like 40 members, and now we have 400.
Wow, it's impressive. So you talked a little bit about the initial vision being about economic impact during those months. Can you talk a little bit about what you saw in those first years? Did it start to make a difference economically and beyond?
Well, it certainly has over the years. That, you know, I don't know about at that point.
It took a while. I mean, there was a lot of manufacturers out there then, and a lot of the snowmobiles weren't made to go long distances, and they were rough riders. No suspension, you know.
Right.
And at that point, as the Snowmobile Club formed, then businesses in town here, Little Star Garage had an Articat dealership. Henson's Hardware had a Johnson Evinrude dealership. And Jerry Trapp had a Rupp dealership. So, you know, they were, I mean, everything was like, okay, let's get the Snowmobile Club thing rolling here.
As you think about how local businesses have worked with the club over the years, I imagine today it's, with 400 members, it's pretty immense in terms of the involvement of the businesses. And can you talk a little bit about the evolution of working with the businesses? I mean, was it just those handful of businesses you just mentioned, Mary, that kind of started? And can you think about how the growth and working with the businesses has grown over the years?
Well, the businesses I think, have always been and still very supportive.
Yeah, very. And
Because, you know, that's their, like I said, that's their bread and butter in winter.
And before the snowmobiling got started, a lot of the businesses would just close during the winter. You know, they wouldn't be open.
So
But we see a big difference in that.
yeah, so a real direct impact was that businesses were just staying open more as the club came into being and grew.
I mean, at the present time, right now, some of the businesses take their vacation now and wait for the snow and the trails to open.
How about over the years, and you think about that initial vision, Mary, as you talked about it being around the businesses, have you seen the mission change over the years, the mission of the Snowmobile Club? As it's evolved to what it is today?
With the businesses,
No, just in general, the mission of the club. You know, does it have a different purpose today than it did in 1968?
well, it's always all about, I mean, the Snowmobile Club is all about the trails and making sure we have trails to bring those people into town. And one thing that I saw after, you know, my 14 years of working at the Pea Patch, and a lot of comment that was made, Manitowish Waters has nothing to hold those snowmobilers into town. The biggest snowmobile economy we see here is people that come through. You know, and it's like, you'd see 100 snowmobiles parked outside the Pea Patch on a Saturday, but by Saturday night at 10 o'clock, there was nobody around except who stayed in the 10 rooms at the Pea Patch, and you know, then we finally got the lodge, Timberline or whatever they called it back then, so that brought a little bit in. So the businesses have helped build it also, but you know, the Snowmobile Club has to keep the trails groomed to bring them here or bring them through.
Let's focus on the trails for a minute. Can you think back to the original trails, what existed, and how has that evolved over time? your trail system?
It's gotten bigger, and the trails now they're smooth,
And wide.
and wide, yeah, and you can't, you don't have to worry about them being so rough that you can't ride them, because, you get a lot of compliments in Manitowish Waters for their smooth trails.
And how about the growth of the system in terms of connecting with other communities? How has that changed over time?
It's been great. We work a lot with Mercer and Boulder, and even the
White Thunder Riders
What-
out of Hurley.
they even come down and do stuff on our trails too, and we do the same. If there's a breakdown or something, we're out helping them so the trails are smooth 7 days a week.
I imagine there has to be pretty frequent communication during peak season with the other communities and clubs. Is that something that you're part of in any way?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And they have there's also a county alliance. There's the snowmobile clubs, and then there's a county alliance, and then there's a state association. So like we have representatives every single month that go to a county alliance meeting, and so they know what every club in the county is doing. And we do things together and support, so that one club supports another club through the alliance, the Wallace County Alliance.
Great. And then does that group then connect to the other counties, for instance, Iron County?
I imagine. I don't know a lot about the county alliance, but I'm sure one county connects with another like that.
Yeah.
And our clubs are very close-knit. We know what each club is, if there is a breakdown, or if there's trees that got reported, on our trail system, they'll contact us and let us know. Make it all safe.
Okay. Let's talk about safety for a moment. As the club got started in the beginning, what safety concerns did the club have, and what do those concerns look like today?
Probably, one of the problems that we have, and it almost kind of deals with safety too, is constantly having to stress to people how you gotta stay on the trails for numerous reasons. One is safety, and the other thing is the better part of our snowmobile trails here in Manitowish Waters are on landowners' property. Well, if they don't stay on the trail and try to be safe, we can lose that property then for our trails also.
Can you think back to more towards the beginning? Were the safety concerns in the late 60s different than the safety concerns today, or is it pretty much still the same ballgame?
No, there's, for one thing, the machines have gotten way too fast, for them little trails. They're not little trails, but they're very windy. The trees are always there.
And they go so fast, yeah.
And
The difference in a snowmobile years ago and a snowmobile today is
right.
the need for speed.
Right. Let's jump from one end of the spectrum with safety to the other side and funny stories. I imagine over the years you've heard lots of funny stories. Hopefully some funny stories that didn't have bad endings, but can you anything come to mind as something that is a little bit more humorous?
Well, I have a story when I was grooming trails with the bed springs. The roads get plowed, and there's always this, hill you have to go over to. And somewhere along the trail, I lost my bed spring, but I didn't know it. And so I groomed a lot of trail without a bed spring until all of a sudden I realized that it wasn't there. And when I turned around to go look for it, it was up on top of one of the banks from the snowplows.
Mary,
I'm trying to think. I'm kind of coming. You know, everybody has
It
fun.
doesn't have
I
to
mean, we
be-
make it fun. You know, we have Cutter Bob now on the groomer, and
so talk a little bit, speaking of Cutter Bob, talk a little bit about current leadership of the club. Who are those people, who's involved, and a little bit about them if you could, please.
well, Barry Hopkins is our president, and he's been doing it since probably 1998.
Yeah, that'd be
Around
about
there.
right.
And Bob Skrobot. And then Chris Trawler is our treasurer. I'm the secretary. And then we have a board of directors. But one of the, this club really has a lot of long-term people. You know, like Charlie Raiola, Al Kaltofen, Jim Robinson, Ralph Hansen. Those
Ralph
old
Kettle.
guys are still members of the club. You know, Charlie Raiola was on the board up until a couple of years ago, and when I was asking him, Charlie, do you still want to be on the board? He was like, yeah, because I still want to come to the dinners. So I said, Charlie, you can come to the dinners, and your father-in-law, Al Kaltofen, also. You guys can come to the dinners as long as you're around. But that meant a lot to them, to still stay in it. Jim Robinson, same thing. You know, Ralph and Jan, until the day they left, left this world, they stayed involved. And that's one thing that you see is a lot of people that got involved in it stayed involved in it.
Yeah, it's neat.
You know, God forbid.
That's
20
what
years
keeps
I've been
it
doing
going.
secretary, and I keep saying I'm going to get out of it. But you know, you still hang in there. I don't even snowmobile anymore, but I'm still secretary of the Snowmobile Club.
Yeah, and we groom our trails 6 days a week. We have 6 groomers. They all take a day. And if one can't, they'll switch days or whatever, but they're groomed 6 days a week.
Great.
You know, one of the things that as I've watched the club grow is in 2015, the state started where you had to have a trail pass on your sled. And if you belonged to a club, you'd get the sticker for $10 as opposed to if you went and bought it from the DNR, it was $30. And like our membership went from 100 people at that point to now over 400. So the state doing that trail pass thing really increased all snowmobile club memberships. I mean, that was a huge thing for memberships and clubs, was the state putting that trail pass on.
Do you see the DNR as a helpful partner in your snowmobiling efforts?
Yeah, I do.
You know, I think people probably have a whole difference of opinion on that, because some people will say no just because they're out stopping people on the trail. But again, that's a safety issue. They're only looking out for people. You know, and all the money that they get from, a lot of that money goes back into the clubs, I would think, from the trail stickers. And
But anytime we've had to work with them, with a trail going through like a swamp or some kind of waterway,
then we're depending on them.
then, yeah. But they always come through. They help us.
Are there other partnerships that you have that help you really make the club work the way it does?
Well, the Department of Transportation got involved when they put that bridge in down by Greer's Pier. That was through
It's
them,
important.
and they worked with us, and that's how we got the bridge.
About when, you know about when that was?
No, I do not.
Okay.
It wasn't very long ago, actually. 10 years, maybe?
Yeah, maybe 10, 12 years.
Okay. Any other?
Because those are big safety issues, like going over that. You used to have to go over that bridge on your snowmobile, and I can remember one time my snowmobile going out into the middle, And you know, the other safety concern is, of course, the bridge downtown, that eventually that's going to have a bridge, so that will help a lot.
Yeah.
And down there by Greer's Pier, you got two corners, you know, and that makes it really a hazard.
So we talk about safety issues like that all the time. I mean, at our meetings and everything, anywhere where it's, you know, becomes not so safe for.
And then the water, we had to go over on K. We bought the land. The snowmobile club bought the land to put that bridge up, which we had to work with the DNR and so.
There's always something going on.
Yeah.
What about looking forward? Do you see the club changing much? Is it just you're on the right path and you should just remain on that path?
We're on a very good path. I mean, as long as we continue, you know, I think at some point the leadership will have to change just because we're all getting older and we'll be the Ralph Hansen and Charlie Riolas.
Right.
But, you know, another safety and something else, a safety issue. Our club sponsors a snowmobile safety class every year for the kids.
Mm-hmm.
And we do that. We pay for the whole thing. We pay the fees and everything. So we're trying to, you know, start kids out and get them. I have 3 really good instructors that do it, and
And the classes are full, always. So there's enthusiasm out there. We also give them a 1-year membership. Oh, we don't do that anymore? Oh, I'm sorry.
Things change. I'm glad you brought that up because a lot of organizations in town, as our population ages, having some challenges with having the younger generations to come in and be responsible and participate and take on leadership responsibilities. What does the future look like for the Snowmobile Club from a future generation perspective?
well, you got to depend on that generation. You know, that's why you kind of want to get them going. You know, I tell a lot of parents, now my classes are so full I can't really push it, but you know, I would say to parents, they'd say, well, we don't have a snowmobile, there's no sense my kid taking that class. Well, your kid might want a snowmobile down the line as they grow up, and you have to have the class. If you were born after 1982, you have to have the class. So why not get your children in there and get it? And now I have to be a little bit not so generous on that because the class fills up so fast every year.
Gotcha. Do you see, are younger people getting involved with the club so that you can see future leaders kind of coming through the pipeline, or is it Barry and Bob and who's coming after them?
Well, right now, not so much. But they, you know, they partake in all our fundraisers and stuff like that. So that's always, you know, getting their feet wet.
You have to hope that a lot of the members, their children, continue in the club.
Yep.
You know, talk about a funny story. Last year I was working a breakfast at the Shillelaghs, and one of our members that has children, their kids were playing pull tabs. You know, the kids love the pull tabs. So I watched this little boy, and they had won a couple dollars, and so the brother cashed his in, and the other little boy comes up and he had a dollar winner, and so I don't remember who was doing them, but they got paid their dollar, and that little boy I happened to be just observing this. This little boy walked over and put his dollar in the trail fund pig on the bar.
That's neat.
So I thought, well, now there's a future member.
Right.
You know, he just donated his dollar to the trails.
Future president.
Yeah.
Or in charge of fundraising, maybe.
Yeah.
Can you each think of the one thing you think people should know about the history of the Snowmobile Club, of the Sno-Skeeters? What's the most important thing that people should know?
Probably that we're always looking out for the snowmobilers.
For their safety,
You know.
that's a big thing. because our trails are, when our trails get towards, you know, the opening of the season, we have groups that go out, clean the trails, make sure all the signs are up, make sure all the signs are in the proper places, and it all comes back to safety.
Great. Well, Deb, Mary, thank you very much for your time today. Appreciate it.
Oh, you're welcome.
You're welcome.
Glad to be here.